If you've got a bunch of songs halfway finished, if you've got a recording project that you haven't completed, this video is for you. This is 3 techniques to help overcome overwhelm and increase motivation. I'm Keith from No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com. Let's dive right in. A little bit of background. Over the past several years, my motivation level has declined. And it got to the point where I lost about 80% of my business income. I wasn't getting music projects done. Nothing was happening, and I had to crawl out of this hole. So I'm going to talk about what I have done to turn this around, to get to making the habits that are going to move me forward a part of my daily routine, and essentially getting more motivation attached to the things that are going to move me forward. And hopefully you can apply these to your life to overcome overwhelm and increase your motivation. So what is the number one thing that I did to help me turn my motivation levels around? It sounds very complex, but it's very simple. I started to pair dopamine release with high effort, high intensity, high focus activities. Now, what does that mean? Well, dopamine is the pleasure hormone. It's a hormone and a neurotransmitter. And we want to establish a connection between that feeling of pleasure and the high effort activities so that we begin to crave challenge. And the challenging things in our music careers are usually the things that move us forward, right? So how do you do this? Well, there's lots of ways to get dopamine in your system. Chocolate, hugs, spending time with loved ones, food, methamphetamines, cocaine. And the one that we're going to talk about today mostly is internal self-talk and imagery, positive internal self-talk and imagery. So when you give yourself a pat on the back, metaphorically, or celebrate inside, go yay inside, that can release a little bit of dopamine if you do it in a believable way. Now, I had been doing it all wrong. What I had been doing internally is when I finished a difficult task, going, good job, you finished. Now, nothing wrong with that, right? But here's what happens over time. Over time, that established a connection between letting go of effort, relaxing, and dopamine rush. Now, dopamine is not only the hormone of pleasure, it is closely related to how much motivation we have and how much mental focus we have. In fact, we really experience motivation through dopamine to the extent that dopamine is motivation. Without dopamine, you're not going to feel motivated. So what I had done was connected dopamine to letting off the gas. So laying on the couch was more appealing to me than doing challenging work. So I discovered this through a guy named Andrew Huberman, who was a tenured professor, I think, of neurobiology at Stanford University. And he had a video, I will link to it below. Over 2 hours, I watched the whole thing. I almost never do that. And the main idea that I came away with was connect high effort, high focus, high intensity activities to dopamine release. Now, I went down to try this the next day. I tried it out doing exercising. I do a treadmill program of 30 minutes. And so I went down there, and the program goes up and down automatically in speed. So at what I used to consider the hard parts, I gave myself a little mental congratulations. I just said to myself, you're doing the thing. And then I made a picture of myself with energy and vitality. I could see myself in my imagination. And then those things gave me a little dopamine rush. Now, it's important that you do this in a believable way. I can't, if I said, I'm the greatest athlete of all time and made myself a picture looking like The Rock, then I would just go, internally, I'd just go, that doesn't work for me. So it has to be believable. So 20 minutes later, I'm doing this treadmill, and the speed is about to change. It makes a little beep when it changes. And I think the speed is going down. But it goes beep, and the speed goes up. And out of nowhere, this internal voice comes into my brain and goes, bring it on, when the speed went up. And I went, whoa, there is the killer instinct that has been missing for so many years. Just 20 minutes of pairing Dopamine release with high effort activities started me craving those challenges. And those challenges are the things that are going to move you forward. So in terms of music, whether you're practicing, whether there's some sort of habit that you want to do consistently, when you bring focus to the table and you're digging in on that habit and it's a challenging part, give yourself a little bit of positive self-talk and a little bit of positive imagery. And at first, when you're first trying this out, do it every time. After a while, after you've established the connection, it gets stronger if you do it randomly, maybe half the time or a third of the time or something. Give yourself that positivity. Don't reward yourself as much when you finish a task. Don't go, yeah, I'm done. Just go, okay, good job. But when you're in the midst of that thing, and you're really cranking on it, give yourself the positivity. That timing is so important. This is the number one thing that I've done to turn my motivation around. The number two thing that I've done is to remove any obstacles that I can before I start a project or, let's say, a practice routine. So if I want to practice guitar the next day, the night before, I put my guitar on a stand, I have my workbook open to the correct page, I have a footstool, whatever you need to do to get prepared. Have the piano keyboard open or have your software on. Remove any obstacles. It's amazing how much the little things can cause a feeling of overwhelm. Oh no, I have to dig through the closet for my guitar strap. It's too much trouble, I won't do it. So the number two thing is to remove any obstacles that are in the way that you can before, usually the night before, or before you kick into the practice, or before you go to the recording studio, or whatever it is that you're doing. Now, I understand you live a life and your life has practicalities. Maybe you can't leave the guitar out on the stand because the dog will knock it over or the kids will eat your lyric sheet. Just do what you can. It's not about being perfect. It's about making things easier for yourself. So that's number two. Remove any obstacles to starting the activity or going to work on the project. So the third technique is to break both routines and projects down into small steps and commit to doing just the first step. Now, your first step should be maybe 2 minutes or maybe even less than that, 30 seconds long, something that you can easily do without a problem. Most people experience overwhelm by doing the following things. They make a picture of the project in their head and they think of all the various things that they have to do in order to complete the project. And it seems like too much and they go internally with their internal voice, oh God, this is going to be so hard, right? This is what overwhelm is like internally. So when we take that process away and we break it down to the small chunk and we just say, what's the first small thing that I need to do? I need to turn on my computer. Okay, I can do that. Commit to doing that. What's the next step? Open up the software to the correct song. What's the next step? Okay, I'm going to record guitars today, so let me decide which guitar to record. And then you're into it. You've avoided the overwhelm by avoiding thinking about all the things that you have to think about, narrowing your vision down to just those things that will get you started. You'll find that once you sidestep that overwhelm, that most times you will keep going. So that's 3 techniques that I've used to help turn my motivation levels around. Number 1, time your dopamine release to high effort, high intensity, high focus activities. Number 2, remove any obstacles to the routine or project to getting started so that when you get to it, all you have to do is sit down and start. Number 3, break big projects and routines down into the smallest possible chunks, not smallest possible, but somewhere around 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and commit to just starting and see where that takes you. If you found this valuable at all, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, share. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's worked for you. Now, there's a link below to an article that goes more in depth into these processes. You can follow that and find out more. Until next time, it's Keith from No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com. Bye-bye.